Chapter 6. "Hey, piano man, you know anything I might like?" I stopped in my tracks and stared back at the eyes covered in too many layers of dark makeup. My day just couldn't recover, and a tiny voice in the back of my head was saying something that seemed important. Fortunately, I have become quite good at ignoring that irritating voice in the back of my head. "Tiffany, my old friend, I'm a little surprised to see you again so soon. How long have you been here?"
"I told you I'd see you later. What else did you think I meant?"
"Well, I figured you were just being nice, kind of a generic farewell that people use. Although I normally would have been incredibly enthusiastic about this unexpected meetup, my game was off from my disturbing afternoon. Sorry to disappoint you, I don't work the weekends. You'll have to come back Monday for your goth music fix." She laughed. I melted a little.
"Is that what you call that music you were slaughtering earlier today?"
Tiffany kicked the chair across from me so it slid away from the table, an obvious invitation to join her. I wish that irritating voice in the back of my head would quiet down. I grabbed a water from the cooler and gave the kid behind the counter $1. Mama Joe would have given it for free, but I try not to get too familiar with the weekend part-timers, and I didn't want to explain that I worked there. The tall, gangly kid behind the counter was new, probably 16 years old, and had a massive pimple on the side of his nose. Could have been me a decade ago. I sauntered over to Tiffany and plopped down in the chair. "So tell me the backstory and about why you don't like bullies. Something tells me that you aren't still mad at the cheerleaders from high school for picking on you or for your lack of wardrobe creativity." Several seconds passed before she replied.
"No, I wish that were the extent of the bullying I deal with. Let's just say that bullies in the real world aren't interested in just making you feel smaller so they can feel bigger. The real world is about control. Controlling people and the outcomes of nearly every situation is the reality I fight every day. But enough about me. Tell me about how you started volunteering at the hospital."
I didn't appreciate the subject change, but I knew not to pry further. At least I cracked the tough exterior wall and saw a glimmer of the real person. As for my tragic backstory, I stick to the light and fluffy version with strangers. "Not much to tell. My mom got cancer and spent a great deal of time there. I got to know everyone quite well and decided to keep volunteering after she died."
"What kind of cancer did she die from?"
Now, normally, most people in my shoes would just continue with the conversation, but I've had this conversation literally 100 times, and she did 2 things that struck me quite odd. First, she didn't apologize for my mother's death. I've always found it strange how people always apologize to you for something they had no connection. But I do the same thing, so I don't really fault people for it. I consider it a cultural formality at this point. The second thing she did was ask about the type of cancer. This is not something people do in the process of normal conversation. Normal people immediately steer the conversation away from painful topics, not directly down the path of obvious suffering. However, I don't usually get into casual conversations with goth chicks, so normal may not apply here. "She had pancreatic cancer," I said, leaving the obvious and erroneous implication that it was also the cause of her death. "So why do you volunteer? Did you lose someone to cancer? I can dig too, after all." Tiffany just smiled that polite kind of smile when you need to buy yourself some time before answering.
"Yes, I've lost a few people to cancer and other untimely ends. But not around here. I'm new in town. I just wanted to help out. You have a problem with that?"
There was a slight edge to her tone, but I knew there was more to her story, and she was practically announcing that she was lying. Naturally, I couldn't let it go. "Bullshit," I said. "Don't expect me to cough up my personal story and loosen my defenses while you sit there and lie to me all night. Either tell me the truth or stop asking me personal questions." Clearly, I'm a little more on edge than normal. This was actually kind of fun. Normally, I'm trying hard to be charming and outgoing with women, but Tiffany was nothing like normal women. She had a strong confidence about her and an obvious mountain of history hidden behind her defensive wall. Plus, there was no way she was going to sleep with me. I've been down this path too many times, and I know where this one leads. I let her stew a bit. The shocked look on her face was priceless. A tight grin finally returned to her face, and she smoothly replied,
You have no idea what you are asking. I have no story, no past, no future. I have right here, right now, just like you.
I said nothing and waited for her to continue.
Let's just say I have my reasons for volunteering at the hospital. Believe it or not, I'm trying to figure out this miserable existence just like you.
Her eyes met mine, and for a second, I saw her. Then she looked down again into her coffee. The worst part of unraveling the fabric of your belief system is that as you continue pulling the string, eventually you are left alone, with nothing. Admittedly, I did want to know that this dark corner of reality I found myself in was not a completely solitary existence. Feel like getting a bite to eat? There's a sports bar a few blocks down that has amazing burgers. Tiffany looked up and started to nod as her gaze drifted over my shoulder and a cold expression washed across her face. I snapped a quick look, and 2 leather-wrapped guys in trench coats walked in. They were the same 2 that I saw this morning, and they were walking right towards us. Tiffany got to her feet, and the look on her face shifted from cold shock to icy hatred. I figured I should stand too in case everyone wanted to group hug or something.
"You look like you could use a little help here, Tiffany," the hook-nosed Mexican drug dealer said. "The boss wants it sped up. We need to bring him in or close soon."
I looked back at Tiffany for clarification, and she was coming around the table to get in his face. Now, I'm a pretty tall dude, but Chacho here was several inches taller than me and probably 50 pounds heavier as well. I'm not sure I would have come at him with an accusing finger extended.
You were instructed to lay off and let me handle it, she said with an elevated, harsh tone, finger jabbing just inches from his face.
The wiry, short guy started laughing and pulling out a butterfly knife, flipping it open and closed with a smooth and rehearsed flick of the wrist. Not an ounce of fear showed on Tiffany's face. I don't think I was that fortunate. He flicked the knife first at Tiffany, who didn't budge, and then moved toward me, saying,
I think we know where this is going. Why don't we just go out back and discuss the offer?"
With the last flick of the wrist, the knife stopped spinning and stayed open, pointing at my throat. I'm thinking the group hug thing might be out.
"Easy, Horatio. This is not our call. We are just here to support you, Tiffany. If you should need any, help."
The big guy put a hand on the wrist holding the threatening knife. With an unnerving smile, Horatio, the over-caffeinated Chihuahua, lowered the knife, but did not put it away.
"Besides, we just stopped by for some magic coffee here at Obnoxious Joe's."
He walked over to the counter, and the pimple kid looked like he had just wet himself. With shaking hands, 2 cups of coffee appeared, and the kid quickly backed away. Chacho grabbed the 2 cups and smiled a brown, toothy grin at the kid. Apparently they were on the house because there was no attempt to request money. He held out one of the cups to Horatio, who needed more caffeine about as bad as I needed this day to get any weirder. As he reached out to grab the cup, the side seam split open and scalding hot coffee poured out over Chacho's hand and across the front of Horatio. Both guys screamed and jumped back as 16 inches of Colombian dark roast covered the floor between us. The Chihuahua's tenuous grasp on the strings of self-control finally snapped, and the butterfly knife started flipping wildly in his hand again, his eyes locked on mine. Why did he think that I had anything to do with the poor cup construction? He took 1 step toward me, and both Tiffany and Chacho seemed too shocked by this rapid change of events to get in his way fast enough. The spinning butterfly knife made another rotation as he raised it back toward my throat, when instead of snapping open like it did last time, a piece of it flew across the room. In his hand was just one side of the handle. The other side and the blade skidded under a table. Horatio threw the handle aside, took another lunging step toward me, and promptly face-planted right in the middle of the dark puddle. Before he could regain his composure and make another uncoordinated attack, Chacho stepped in and grabbed him by the collar and pulled him to his feet, slipping slightly but maintaining balance and control over the loose cannon. To my surprise, he was not the least bit wet from falling in the puddle. Chacho seemed to notice this too, and without another word, the big guy dragged his partner out the door. Tiffany stepped forward to the edge of the puddle and felt it. Her hand came back, dripping in wet coffee. I reached down and felt the puddle too, and to my surprise it was ice cold, making me wonder if they had actually received an iced coffee, but there were no ice cubes on the floor. We looked at each other as if waiting for the other to explain. Tires screeched outside as, I'm sure, a black Dodge Charger drove away at top speed. This seemed to break Tiffany from her trance.
Time to go, Finn. How about that burger?
And she grabbed my hand and guided me towards the door. As freaked out as I was, I'm pre-programmed to follow pretty girls when they ask me to, so naturally I let her lead me to the door. On our way through, I saw Tony sitting in the corner booth, smiling at me.